Swell Media. Glad so much to be connected once again for one of our webinars where today we're actually going to walk through a really excellent presentation that I walked through several publishers with. And, you know, this is really outstanding. I think that people are absolutely really going to enjoy this in a really robust way. And what this is based upon, as you can see here, is the Magazine Publishers of America actually puts out a fact book each year. And this fact book is all about audience growth, trust and credibility, a lot of tons of facts and stats in it. What I wanted to do is for the next 35 or 40 minutes, I wanted to really dissect these statistics because I think overall it's going to be exceedingly beneficial to you as publishers, but also to your sales team. Now, sales teams. And also notice that at the bottom of each slide, hopefully you can see at the bottom, you'll see some sourcing information. One of the things that makes me crazy across the country and I work with publishers is when salespeople give out stats and they don't have a source. And the reason I think it's so important is because we want to be really grounded. We want to make sure that when we're talking about statistics that we have really viable things to back them up with. This can be found online, magazinemediafactbook.org. And so let's walk through these slides today and discuss them together. Now, the first slide, everybody loves magazine. Reading a magazine is an intimate, involving experience, which is one reason the average reader spends 42 minutes. The average reader spends 42 minutes reaching every issue. One of the things to note on this slide is the fact that in the publishing business, you have a lot of people, young people aren't reading magazines anymore. And that's really discouraging. And this is a statistic. I'm going to have to say statistic a lot today. This is one of the statistics that totally rebuffs that misnomer. 93% of adults read magazines. Interesting. 96% of those under 35 read magazines. 97% of those under the age of 24 read magazines. Now, isn't that a really interesting statistic, especially when we know that people today really feel like, listen, everything's going on the Internet. Everybody's spending all of their money on the Internet. We're going to move all of our advertising online. And I like to say, hold on, hang on, time out a minute. Because really, truly, and honestly, that is not true. And we have a statistic here to be able to back it up. I'm just going to say stat because statistic is going to throw me off. And this adults 18 plus, this is an MRI study, the fall of 2010. Magazine readership is still very, very strong. Adults 18 plus, this is a 5-year growth trend. Magazine audience are growing faster than newspapers. Adults 3.8% are reading magazines, 23% using the Internet. Let's go right down the row. Adults 5 plus, 5.2%. The Internet, 24.6%. But look what happens to television, radio, and newspapers. Now, why is this important? A lot of you might be in the city and regional magazine space, and so what you're competing against is a lot of television and radio stations. I recently was working with a publisher that's in a Midwestern market in Illinois. They actually have 16 radio stations in their market. So by the time they get to one of their customers in the magazine business or newspaper business, that particular business owner has been called on a minimum of 16 times. Can you imagine? A minimum of 16 times. Crazy. Here's the interesting thing. Adults 18 plus, their usage of radio 5.1%, magazines at 3.8 compared to the Internet 23.2. Look at adults 35 plus, 5.2%, and this is the percentage growth positive. This is the percentage change from 2006 to 2010. So 5.2% growth in adult reading magazines, 4% growth in radio. Look at newspaper, down 0.42%. Area of adults 18 to 34, which focuses in a lot of us, magazine change has only been 0.9%, whereas newspapers have dropped 14.6%. Radio only up 3.1%. The change is only 3.1%, and television only 1.1%. So what this tells us is overall readership has really not changed that much, and readership is strong. It's nice to see that it's not, going down. The age in the United States is 45 years old. Now here is the average age of usage, okay? So if you look at which of the medias are closest to the average age in the United States, tell us a little bit over. Newspapers is obviously much higher. So what that means is more older people over the age of 45 are reading newspapers. Magazines is just about right. So that means that magazine readers closely reflect the median age of the population of the United States. Here's something really interesting, and this really applies to some of the folks that I work with, publishers that publish magazines for college campuses, people in that 18 to 25-year-old range. Younger readers are driving heavy usage of magazines. Heavy usage for millennials is 25%, and Gen Xers 22%, with the household incomes of $50,000 plus. It ranks second only to the internet. On the same income, heavy magazine usage is unsurpassed by. So look at the three columns here that we have. We've got boomers, we've got Gen Xers, and we have the millennials. And here is the usage. Magazine is 21% for boomers, 22% for Gen Xers, 25% for millennials. Comparing it to the internet. Okay, so for boomers, if your magazine or newspaper on this call today, or whatever your media is, 20% for boomers for the internet compared to 21% usage for magazines. Television, 15% for boomers, 21% for radio. Isn't that an interesting stat? Gen Xers, 22% magazines, 26% on the internet, so a little bit higher, 10% on radio. So if you're in a market where you're competing against radio stations, this is a good stat. Radio at 21% and television at 10%. Millennials, 25% on magazines, 32% on the internet, and only 9% on television. So happen to be in a market where you're dealing with the millennial audience, only 9% usage in the television space is not very good, 19% in radio. And I think that might be actually high because I know that most of the millennials I know are addicted to their iPods. Magazines appeals to young adults. Did you know that adults 18 to 34 are more likely to be in the top quintile of magazine readership? The most avid or the heaviest readers overall are young readers. This MRI data demonstrates that adults under 5 years old read more issues per month than adults who are over the age of 35. So this really throws out, doesn't it, the whole magazines are dead institute or that magazines are dead phraseology. It really throws it out in a really robust way. It's important for all of us to understand that. Now, magazines, and we're not going to go through all this because this report is so extensive. Magazines appeal to diverse readers. More than 8 out of 10 African American adults are magazine readers. They read 15.8 issues per month, and this has got some really great stats on teen use, Hispanic use, African American use, and cross-media comparisons. Now, the one thing that is important is that we need to understand that the average monthly accumulations is approximately 50%, 58% of digital magazine readers read their edition the day that they get it. Magazines accumulate reach faster. So when talking about an advertising campaign being pushed out over the course of an audience of choosing, magazines get people to the fact faster than radio, television. It actually, most people, what it's saying here is most people that get digital editions often read it the exact same day. So if you happen to have a customer or an advertiser that wants to be able to get their message out fast, they might think that TV is the fastest way, radio is the fastest way, but what it's actually saying is that magazines, in terms of days and weeks, is actually much faster. Here's something interesting, and this ad is something that I'd really encourage all of you to consider creating a one-sheet about. Magazines reach more adults and teens than television. So again, if you happen to be in a CRM market, a city and regional market, this is a really, really great stat to be able to share. Also, in talking with an advertiser, a prospective advertiser, and they happen to say things along the lines of, hey, I'm doing a lot of advertising in national television, I'm doing a lot of stuff with video. Video's great, TV's great, but facts are facts. Magazines provide superior reach compared to television programs for major targeted audiences of Carrot's cross-media research, comparing the top 25 primetime television programs to the top 25 magazines. And you can see how the statistics play out. How about that? Magazines outperforming television. A stat that I absolutely love. Magazine reading offers pure pleasure, control, and escape. Somebody asked me, why is it and that you feel that magazines and magazine advertising actually engages people more than any other media? And I think the answer is simple. All other media is disruptive. Let me give you an example. You might be watching television, for example, and you're sitting there and the commercial comes on, if you even wait for commercials. I mean, what do most of us do? Most of us actually record the commercial, TiVo it, record it on our DVR. Maybe you're like me and in my family. One of the things that we do is we actually start the recording. We sit down to watch the program. We started recording. We'll hit pause. We'll visit. We'll get our drinks ready. You might grab dinner, whatever it is, or a snack. And then we sit down and watch the television program. Then we fast forward, right, through all the commercials. What about that? Radio is disruptive. I mean, radio is not a really good form of advertising, in my opinion, in circumstances. Why? Because you're driving, you're distracted, you're listening to it in the background. I mean, radio is typically background music. Television can be easily interrupted. And it's not that if you're reading a magazine, someone can't say boo and disrupt you. But magazines continue to score significantly higher than television and the Internet in key engagement attributes. I mean, how often actually sit down when it comes to the Internet and just engage yourself for 30 to 45 minutes? I know a lot of people that really believe and really see magazines as an escape. Now, in terms of how receptive are ads, when people see an ad, and in terms of how receptive are they to those ads, magazines, you can see from this first statistic here, clearly outperform the Internet and television. Trustworthy is an ad. Well, clearly people in this example here see ads from magazines as being more trustworthy. Life enhancing, it's about even. Social interaction, inspirational, they feel that television is pretty high, but magazines in each one of these categories in terms of how well is an ad received. How does the recipient, the potential customer, see that ad as being life-enhancing, social interaction, inspiration. Magazines outperform all other medias. And it's really important because we want to make sure that we're selling active print. See, print is on dead trees, but it's an active medium, okay? You know, the people that read magazines are more likely to share on social medias than any other medias combined. I mean, consumers pay more attention to magazines than other media, and we have statistics right here in front of you. Check that. Magazine readers are the least likely of all media users to engage in other non-media activities while reading. When consumers read magazines, they're much less likely to engage in other media. Only 13% listen to the radio, and slightly less than 1 in 4, 21%, watch television while they're reading a magazine. A study found that nearly 3/4 of American consumers are multitasking while they're watching television. I mean, clearly, magazines have a higher level of engagement. And when we're selling our magazines, that's one of the things that we need to really make and bring to the forefront, is how important all of these things are. Consumers pay attention to magazines. Here's the percent of consumers who engage in non-media activities while using other medias. Lower percentage equals obviously better performance. So when online, I mean, you're just unbelievably interruptible. Listening to radio is a distraction. Watching television, you're highly distracted. Reading newspapers and magazines, about 10%. So remember, the lower percentage is better. It's really important as we talk and sell magazines and we sell our businesses to small business owners, marketing directors, agencies, local and national, that we really spend some time with them, educating them. Now, are we going to walk them through every slide like we're doing today? No, we're not. It's important for you to understand, one of the main reasons that I'm bringing this up is because I really want you to work with your sales team to come up with some ways and some ideas that you potentially can use these statistics that we're here and create one sheet. Create single sheets that they can use while they're out on a potential sales call. Now, interesting, because a lot of people feel that when it comes to magazine advertising, that people just skip over that advertising on a regular basis. And I've found that to be not true in my own magazine usage, but I've also found that to be true when I'm backed up by some really great statistics. 58% of respondents agree that ads are particularly enjoyable when they're related to the content in a magazine. Very interesting to me because a lot of you have a very clear separation of church and state. You actually don't run ads next to like-minded content. So, for example, I have some of my publishers I work with are in the outdoor space. You might have an article about four-wheeling, or riding your four-wheeler or whatever, and then next to it you would not run an ad for Yamaha because you think there's a separation of church and state. Well, 58% of respondents to this survey, said that they agree that ads are particularly enjoyable when related to content. 60% agree that ads allow for more detailed information. Consumers overall welcome advertising in magazines. Now, this is an interesting index. Compared to 2006, so remember something now, the Internet was obviously active in 2006, but not the way that it is today. Magazine advertising recall is actually higher. People are actually recalling ads that they saw in magazines. In 2006, 53% said they have a pretty good recall. In 2010, 59%. So what a lot of people have said, and I go to a lot of conferences, guys, and I've heard speech after speech about how people are a lot more bored. They become bored with reading. They don't read books. They don't read magazines. And quite honestly, guys, that's baloney. And the reason it's baloney is because look at the sale of the Nook. Look at the sale of the Kindle. Look at the sale of iPads. Look at the sale of tablets. What's happening is that people are actually using these devices to consume more and more content. So the question we should be asking ourselves is, what can we do to better help our users and readers embrace content? Advertising recall within the magazine media, a measure of ad effectiveness for magazine, has grown 11% over the past 5 years. Consumers find value in advertising. Now, when you go through and dissect these slides for yourself and with your sales team, I think it's really important for you to have a really open discussion because consumers, even younger consumers, feel that magazine advertising has more positive drivers. It's useful in providing excellent information. It's a very credible source. They really feel like the ad reception is great. They don't feel like the ads are repetitive. They think it's a lot less inconvenient to read those ads. A majority, 55% of U.S. respondents, state that an important feature of printed magazines is the advertising. Did you know that? A majority, 55% of U.S. respondents state that an important feature of a printed magazine is the advertising. And if you think about that, guys, that really is helpful to us as magazine publishers, isn't it? It's just exceedingly helpful. Magazines rank highest for interest in advertising. People that are seeing advertising find more interest in magazine advertising than almost every other medium. The only media, that was television. And I think we can understand why. With TV, you've got a nice visual, but remember, you watch the ads. So that even if you're in the B2B space, you're in a local market, it's really important for you to understand that television is an interruptible medium. It's not something people sit down and kind of snuggle up with a magazine to read, and it's a distraction in a lot of cases, and you're very easy to be distracted from watching a TV show. Consumers enjoy and trust magazine advertising. Magazines rank number 1 out of 16 media for consumers having a positive and credible impression of advertising. And number 2, only to video games for consumers enjoying the content at the time that they saw the advertisement. Almost 2/3 of readers report that they enjoy reading magazine ads. Almost half, 46% in this particular study, read the magazines for the information about new brands and companies. So magazines rank first out of 16 media for consumers having a positive and credible impression of advertising. Adults 18 to 54, look on the bottom of this slide here, who trust advertising. 40% said they trust magazines. 10% to the Internet, 40% to television. So, I think that we all could agree the Internet is not necessarily the most trusted resource. You kind of hear the old joke, well, if it was on the Internet, it has to be true, right? Well, that's, obviously is false and is very much a misnomer. Here's something really interesting, an interesting statistic. Magazines, word of mouth, reaching social networkers and building trust. So if you have an advertiser that has said to you, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of my information, all my advertising to social media. I'm going to say, okay, time out, for a couple of reasons. One, social media is only a part of the total advertising package. It's only a part of reaching out to potential advertisers. As a magazine sales rep, you want to make sure that these prospective advertisers understand that they need to reach a potential customer 6 to 7 times before they actually make an advertising decision. I mean, just think of yourself. How many times do you actually need to see an advertisement before you make a reaction? How many times does your wife have to bug you to take out the trash? I mean, it's 5 or 6 times, right, guys? Okay, come on. Magazine readers are highly trusted for their advice across a number of categories, including social media, and that's what this is all about. So it's interesting to me that magazine readers are actually the ones that are influencing the word of mouth. So that would mean that an advertiser would really want to be seen in a magazine because it's much more highly likely that a magazine reader is to share the information across a social network. Here's the thing that is really impactful for me when I'm trying to sell. Magazines rank number 1 in driving purchase intent. And remember something, guys, in case you're joining us in the middle of this webinar, it's really important for you to understand every single statistic, okay, magazine media fact book is sourced at the bottom of the page. Provide more bang for the buck. Magazines increase purchase intent 5 times as much as television or the internet when looking at each medium alone affected purchase intent. Again, magazines increased purchase intent. Isn't that so vital? Isn't that super important to our advertisers? Magazines increase potential customers' purchase intent 5 times as much as television or the internet when looking at each medium alone and how it affected their intent to purchase a product or service. It's so, as we go forward in these slides, you're going to see whether alone or in combination with other media, magazines were the only medium to be ranked as most efficient at each stage of the purchase funnel. Now, what's the purchase funnel? Just think of a regular funnel, and there's different stages, okay? There's getting the product notice, there's consideration, there's making a final decision, there's asking your spouse, you know. I hope you guys recognize. I give a lot of marriage-type examples because of how it relates to my life, okay? I love being married, by the way. Advertising gets readers to act, and isn't that what's so important in terms of return on investment for advertisers? We want magazine ads to cause a reaction. Check this out. This is an awesome statistic. 77% of respondents purchase a product after seeing or reading something in a magazine. 77%? Wacky, crazy, off the charts, isn't it? But it's an awesome statistic to be able to share. More than half, 53%, of magazine readers took action or had a more favorable opinion about the advertiser because of magazine advertising. 67%, guys, I mean, and print is dead, and print advertising doesn't work. I might ask myself, and I might ask a prospective advertiser or an advertiser, how are you tracking the actions that are coming in? Are you really being specific? You might even suggest to them that they go with a company like CallSource, for example, and be able to use some call tracking mechanisms. Because readers respond to magazine advertising regardless of how they acquired a magazine. See, a lot of times those that are trying to sell against print or especially against magazines will say that there's no pass along. That's a lie. No one actually passes it along. I mean, I think about the number of times that I have picked up a magazine or you have picked up a magazine, whether say that you're, in a public place, maybe you're in a doctor's office, let's just say that, you happen to be in an airport, in the Delta Sky room at the airport or something like that. It doesn't matter how you get the magazine, whether you buy it, you subscribe to it, or whether you pick it up at your mom or dad or your friend's home. Readers respond to magazine advertising regardless of how they acquire the magazine. About the book. I think this is really something that's really important for all of you to make note of. So if you're check your email, come on back with me to the presentation, okay? I hope you're not. Because a lot of people say, if we're not in the front of the book, the front of your magazine or the front of your newspaper, you're not going to be noticed. And that's actually not true at all. Some statistics to prove it. Advertising performance is not compromised by position in the book. Let's take a look at this full issue, okay? So the first quarter of the book, total recall, actions taken, 59 to 53%. Okay, second quarter of the book, recall of the ad, 59% to 50% to the action taken. 50% to 54% action taken. Quarter of the book, total recall 57% to 51% action taken. Now, if you look at that 51% to 53%, a 2-point difference, I mean is such a small number. It's really widely attributed that this is a very true study, and it was done in December of 2010, so it's not an old study. Okay, so if you're in the first quarter of the book, the total recall of the ad was 61, and the actions taken to 53. And if you're in the back half of the book, 57 to 59, 51 to 53. I mean, this is just absolutely shows that advertisers are wrong if they say, hey, if I'm in the back of the book, so I'm not getting a good response. Well, truly, this statistic tells us that that's not the fact. Now, stat that none of us really need to pay attention to, because we all know this. Creative, the ad creative, is the strongest predictor of effectiveness. We all knew this, right? And so what do you want to do next year or in the coming months to make sure that you have better ads coming in? Well, one of the things you may want to do is share an ebook or hold a webinar about creative ad design. That's something for localizers. Perhaps make sure that your local designers at your particular shop are as educated as they can be. Send them to some training. Make sure that clear calls to action drive advertising. Advertising with clear calls to action drive response. So we all knew this statistic, so we're going to move on. But there's some proof there, isn't there? The creative ads drive it. Now, interestingly enough, radio and TV ads tend to wear out very, very quickly, especially if you hear them drone on and on and on over and over again, right? Well, magazine ads are slow to wear out. And in 2 key full-year magazine campaigns for both Toyota and Target in 2010, magazines and actions taken did not wear out throughout the course of the magazine campaign. And so basically what that's telling us is what? Magazines have a really nice, long shelf life. Consumers to go online. Isn't that an interesting statistic? 48%, almost one-third, 30% rather, of magazine readers report that they have used a computer or mobile device to visit a magazine's website in 6 months. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Average branded media sites yields greatest impact. Content-branded media sites provide the best results for online campaigns compared to portals, ad networks. So when could you potentially use this statistic? I mean, this is a statistic that you would be able to use if someone says, hey, I'm going to go and be running on a portal-type website. What's a portal site? A site that just basically kind of aggregates data, or is kind of like an umbrella website. And folks say, hey, I'm going to run with Google Ads Network. The Google Ad Network, and don't get me wrong, I love Google. Google's a great company, but Google Ad Network I have found to be tremendously effective for most of my advertising clients. Women's Magazine partnered with a well-known CPG brand to measure the CPG brand's multimedia campaign across the publications platform. Results for the digital audience metric intent to take action in various attainable statements averaged impressive 10 to 20 points higher for magazine branded over a non-magazine branded audience. So what this tells us is that magazine websites work better than others. To give you an example, I've shared with many of you before, my wife and I own horses, and my wife actually raises, breeds, and races horses. And we have found we advertise on a website that's a part or the official website of a magazine, as opposed to a website that was created by some guy in his garage, which I'm not saying those websites aren't great. What I'm saying here, though, is advertising on branded media websites yields greater impact, and we have statistics to prove. So you want to ask yourself as you're going through this scenario today, and as we're walking through these slides, where can I use that? Where can I use that? And this is where I think that you might want to start. You want to start with your 10 or 20 most common objections and write those down on a piece of paper. You go through this, and you want to find these slides or these statistics that match up to those. Magazines excel in driving web search. Magazines perform best at sending consumers to start a search online. So something, aren't we? Magazines are truly a driving force. readers spend more time online and are more likely to purchase online. You know, some of you might be saying, where have these statistics been? The Magazine Publishers of America, or the Association of Magazine Media, as it's called now, has been putting this handbook out for several years. And again, you can find it online at magazinemediafactbook.org. Magazine readers spend more time online and are more likely to purchase products online. So what does that tell us? It tells us that overall what we need to do is make sure that our advertisers understand that magazine readers drive intent to purchase online. So if you have an advertiser or potential advertiser that's saying, I'm going to advertise all online, perhaps, or madam, you didn't realize that magazine readers spend more time online and are more likely to purchase online. And based on our other statistics, that's why you need to advertise in the magazine to push people over to the web. You know, a lot of people are doing these Google pay-per-click campaigns, and again, love Google. The thing to remember about it is there's a certain percentage of the U.S. audience and audience that will respond to those text ads. There's a certain amount of that audience that actually will not. Those audience are people that actually read magazines and read the web in a different way. Magazines can push them across. I think that's why it's so important. Another thing I'm going to flip forward here in some of these slides is magazine readers actually sell at driving results through the purchase funnel. We talked about that purchase funnel. So let's take a look at these statistics. Brand awareness. Did the overall ad awareness? Did the ad have a great message association, or did the person feel associated to the message? How did the person feel brand favorability? So this was a dynamic logic study done. Well, this presentation is filled with tongue twisters today, right? Studies done in 2009. What is the blue bar is television only. Okay, so this is performance across the purchase pre-post point change. Through all stages of the purchase funnel, magazines performed most consistently with significant lift at each of the 5 stages. Okay, so magazines were the only medium to contribute 1/3 or more to the total point change every stage of the purchase funnel. So talk about an ad, okay, in a particular product. Brand awareness, 28% difference, okay, between television in the blue and the impact of online television, okay? So what was the difference between the results from TV, running a TV ad, and the online ad? The results go from 28% to 36%. Magazines into the mix, not much difference in terms of aided brand awareness. Did the ad ran on one of these particular medias, how did it aid in the brand awareness to a consumer? So what they did is they're talking to consumers, and this, I want to be really clear on this because this is really an important point. Be really clear on the fact that overall, a person that's going to buy an advertiser's item, okay, what they're doing is they're actually, how do they feel in terms of aided brand awareness, okay? How did you feel in terms of overall ad awareness? Where was the biggest impact? Well, you can see that the most sustainable impact in aid awareness was to run in all 3, and that's the orange line. Message association, how did you associate, okay, Mr. Consumer, how did you associate with my ad? Well, television, message association, 39%. When you added the internet, actually the association actually dropped off. Magazines being added to the mix actually helps the results stabilize. So if you happen to have a television customer that is all gung-ho on television, they decide, hey, I'm just not going to do magazines, I'm going to do online. What you want to say to them is, hey, you may be surprised to know that by adding magazines into the mix, it actually adds some real sustainability in terms of message association. Here's a couple, though, that'll knock the ball out of the park for you. In terms of how the consumer feel about an ad, in terms of brand favorability, okay? Look at what happens when you add magazines to the mix. The way that the consumer feels about an ad jumps to 60%. In terms of their purchase consideration, look, if they only stuck with TV, you'd have about, 30% are saying, I felt good about purchasing that product. It drops when you add it to the mix. What if they hadn't, okay, magazines into the mix on this? They would have had about a 13% approval rating for an ad. Approval rating is kind of a generic term. 56%. 56% respondents of this study said that the incremental mix of television, the internet, magazines actually drives up 56%. So overall, if you take all these numbers and you average them out, it's 35%. Okay, 35% better return on your investment if you run in more than one media. Isn't that a number to have? So basically what you could say to your advertiser is, sure, television's great. Sure, radio's great. Sure, magazines are great. But when you add all of them together and add the internet into the mix, you can as much as a 35% greater return on your advertising investment. And when I look at these things and statistics like this, it just makes me feel great, because what it means is that magazines consistently produce strong return on investment. When analyzing return on investment across 38 cross-media accountability studies, Mark Evolution, who did the study, that magazines and television lead in cost efficiency for brand awareness. Magazines generated a superior cost per impact for brand familiarity, with television and online performing at almost double magazine CPI. Magazines yielded a far more efficient cost per impact than television or online for content. So I think it's statistics like this that get me really excited overall about selling media and selling magazines and having a really nice marketing mix. The point to wrap up with today is I think it's really, really important for all of you to accurately understand that there has to be a marketing mix for your advertisers to be exceedingly effective. They at any point decide that what they're going to do is they're just going to go and they're just going to have just one media, it's just not enough. So as leaders within your organizations, you need to make sure that as your salespeople are talking to new and potential advertisers, that they're accurately explaining to them that they run in more than one media. Then you need to ask yourself, okay, how many medias or how many mediums do we, the publishing company, have to offer? I mean, we've got a magazine or newspaper. It's awesome. We've got a website. Awesome. With e-newsletter number 1, number 2, maybe number 3, maybe 3 e-newsletters, that's 5. Maybe we have an online video. Some of you have events, okay, so now we're at 7. What I like to do in training sales staff, and that's what I do every day, is train magazine sales staffs to sell better. I mean, when you're able to embrace these type of numbers, you're really able to retrain your sales team to better use statistics to sell. Now, there's a lot of advertisers that you may talk to that are just not into data, okay? They're not Data Dan, or they're not Data Dave, or they're not Data Diane, okay? Or, Data Danita, or whatever you want to say, okay? And so when you're dealing with those folks, you have to be very careful, exceedingly careful, not to overwhelm them with statistics. And that's why I don't like to take in a report like this. What I want to do is create some one-sheets. But a well-trained sales team is going to be the group that's going to be able to sit down and going to ask those 10 critical questions that we've talked about before. They're going to be able to determine very quickly what the goals are for the marketing department of that particular business, or the goals might be for a small business owner. And then they're going to walk through all the objections and talk about how great magazine advertising is. They're not going to talk about your magazine. See, all too often, sales win, and the first thing they do, hey, thanks for giving me time today. Let me share with you about our magazine, and then blah, 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 blah. They start talking about the magazine. And what's going to happen is the advertiser's going to be shaking their head. Yeah, What are they thinking in the back of their mind? Oh, man, when is this going to be over? This guy is droning on and on and on. I'm already running ads in cable. Doesn't he know I'm running ads in cable? I'm running ads in the newspaper. Doesn't he know I'm running ads in the newspaper? When's this guy ever going to be done? Or they're thinking in the back of their mind, I left the coffee pot on. I've got to pick up the dry cleaning after work. So one of the reasons I like statistics, because I like to walk people through these and get them really excited about print advertising. You got to remember something. I'm the internet guy. I'm the online guy, but I absolutely love print because it's such a vital part of the marketing media mix. Ask yourself, maybe you need to do a one-sheet that's about the marketing mix. It's so important, and I like to call these statistics that sell. It's so important to accurately identify statistics, make all the difference in the world to your advertisers making a decision. Remember something, you are an agent of change. Of change as a salesperson, you need to have data and information that you can use to back up all those things, to that you can help them be the best sales rep that they can be. Now, touch on about 5 or 6 slides, maybe 15 slides or something. Here, all this can be found at magazinemediafactbook.org. This comes from the AA, which used to be Magazine Publishers of America. Now I think it's the Association of Magazine Media. They have a great website as well. But it's really important for you to understand, don't knock your salespeople over the head with these stats. Share this with the editorial team. Share it with the sales team. What you want to do is then get on the phone with me, and let's talk through this live, because you don't want your sales reps to go out with this information and just knock people over to a point of ad nauseum. This needs to be gentle and a small tweak to your overall sales plan so that you be really, really successful. Joining in this webinar today, I hope that you got as excited about these statistics as I have. Remember something, as a Shweiki customer, 25% off anything that I do for you. I'm happy to be your internet consultant, sales team, and walk you through all these type of things. So thanks so much for joining us, and as always, we thank you so much for being a customer of Shweiki Media. Take care, and good luck.